Hello, good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us here at our YouTube channel and on Facebook of the study group Nick Hafler. My name is Karen, and the talk of this evening is part of the activities of our study group, which is the Center for Spiritist Studies Camille Flammarion here in Brussels. At the moment, due to the pandemic situation, we still hold a few of our activities online, such as our public talks. And I would just like to give you a short overview of what we have to offer at the moment and how the talks are being and all the activities are being held. So I put this a bit bigger for you to be able to see it better. We have our public talks in 3 different languages. In French, they are held every Monday, 7 p.m. In Portuguese on Saturdays at 5 p.m. And now in English also on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. as you're seeing right now. And you can follow us either on our YouTube channel or on Facebook. Then there are a few activities that are already being held in person again, but very important to know by appointment at this stage in order for us to make sure that we can really respect the social distancing measures. So what we offer at this stage in person at our premises is the fraternal conversation. So if you would like to talk to someone, you can do that, schedule your appointment. We offer the laying on of hands or the healing, Pasi, and also our library and bookshop are open already. And for all these, please book your appointment, which you can do either via email on our email address info@nekafla.be. You can do this via Facebook Messenger or on WhatsApp. On the following number, it's 0492 859 981. You can find our address, our Facebook address, and much more information on how we do our activities on our webpage, which is nekafla.be. Okay, our talk this evening will focus a bit on the current moment that we are going through and reflect about a few aspects of it and what the Spiritist teachings can offer us. But before we start, I would like to invite you to our initial prayer. So let's for a moment calm down and elevate our thoughts, our vibrations, and ask our Heavenly Father to bless our gathering this evening. I would like to ask for inspiration and guidance, and also for help for all of those who need it. So be it. Now, reflections on the current moment. As we all know, the last months have been really challenging for all of us. And although the actual confinement period here in Belgium is over, it is still a very unusual situation that we are living in, and many of us are still worried a lot, have a lot of different issues. Still, many of our plans have been put on hold. We don't really know how the situation is going to develop, what will come next. For many of us, the situation brought a real necessity to change the whole structure of our lives in order to adapt. Some have lost their jobs. Others, even more serious, have seen loved ones passing away. And also for many of us, this moment brought a psychological struggle, psychological challenges, anxieties that we need to deal with. And I would like to invite all of us to reflect a bit about what the Spiritist teachings can offer us in order to understand this moment that we're going through better and in order to face it, and maybe to even find something positive in it. And also the objective is also to find out what we can do in order to face these moments of struggle, how we can overcome them. So, and I think one very important step in any situation, in any difficult situation that we cannot change, is to accept it, right? We may have our opinions about how the pandemic has started. We may have our opinions about how governments have dealt with it, how certain measures are being implemented. But the pandemic itself is a fact, if we like it or not. So if we find a way to accept it, it will certainly help us to face the situation and to find a way to deal with it. And I summarized some of the key teachings and key messages that the Spiritist teachings offer us, which are, for those who are not that familiar with the Spiritist teachings, they are contained in these 5 main books that you will see here: the Spirit's book, the Medium's book, the Gospel According to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, and Genesis. These books are based on information given by highly evolved spirits through several mediums, many different mediums. And this information, these teachings, were received and organized by Allan Kardec, a French educator and scientist who lived in the 19th century. So in the main, some of the main teachings are the existence of God. No doubt, God exists. The immortality of the soul, the communicability of the spirit, or the ability of the spirit to communicate with us incarnate beings. Then the law of progress, and connected to it, the principle of reincarnation. The plurality of inhabited worlds, moral laws. So these are some of the main teachings, and I would like to focus on some of those and see how they can help us, what they have to offer us in this moment that we're going to. And I would like to start with the most important one, and the one that we see when we open the Spirit's book, and we see it in the first question that Allan Kardec asked to the high order spirits. And this question asks, what is God? And the spirits answer him that God is the supreme intelligence and the first cause of all things. And this is something really worth reflecting about. And at our stage of development, we are not in a position yet at all to understand really what is God, to understand all the aspects of God or the whole concept. And the spirits make that very clear to us, that we can only have a very small idea of it, because we're just not able yet to really grasp the whole meaning of God. But to know that there is a supreme intelligence, a first cause of all things, is very important if we face difficult moments, because we are not drifting aimlessly through the universe on our planet, and things that are happening to us in our personal life, to us as a society, such as now pandemics, or one pandemic, it's nothing that happens by accident, and that would just be, helpless and just having to fear what would come next, what planet we would bump into, or no, there is a supreme intelligence behind everything that exists, and that supreme intelligence is also all powerful. This is what the high order spirits explain to Allan Kardec a bit later at the beginning of the Spirit's book in question 13. All powerful, supremely just and good. And then there are many other aspects that are being mentioned, but I think these are already enough in order to help us to understand there's really something much, much, much bigger than us behind everything that exists. And this supreme intelligence, which is all powerful, which is supremely just, supremely good, a good and in a way that we cannot really understand from our human point of view. So that supreme intelligence would be able to just stop this pandemic from one moment to the next if there weren't a reason for it to be. So if this is happening, then there is a reason behind it. And if we do not understand it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So this is something that we should keep in mind and which is important to remember. And then we often hear when people talk about God, well, yeah, we see so much apparent injustices on earth, and what God is that allows us to suffer, that allows these things to happen. One aspect of the Spiritist teachings that help us a lot to understand the justice of God is that we are much, much more than this physical body that we see. We learn already in the introduction to the Spirit's book at the very beginning that the normal world, the primitive world, the eternal and pre-existing world is the spirit world, not the material world that we're living in right now, but the spirit world. This is the normal, primitive, eternal, pre-existing and all surviving world, our home, our spiritual home. This is where we come from, and this is where we'll go through, where we will return to after this incarnation, because as it is explained here, the corporeal world is secondary. It could cease to exist, or it might never have existed in the first place without changing the essence of the spirit world. Spirits temporarily take on a perishable material envelope, and its destruction by death returns them to freedom, meaning to our spiritual home. So when I say, well, yes, if that is our home, why are we here then? And why are we in such a complicated situation? Why do we go through so much challenges, so many challenges, so much suffering while we are incarnate? So what's the use of that then, if we have this supreme intelligence? And also for that we find answers in the Spiritist teachings. Allan Kardec asked the high order spirits, what is the purpose of an incarnation? So why are we here then? Why do spirits incarnate? This is in question 132 in the Spirit's book. And the spirits explain, the high order spirits explain that the purpose of an incarnation is to lead spirits to perfection. And in order for us to reach this perfection, we must undergo all the vicissitudes of corporeal existences and learn what we need to learn in order to reach perfection. And also, just as a second objective, or as a further objective, spirits are placed in situations where they can do their share in the work of creation. On each world, they clothe themselves with an instrument that is in harmony with the essential matter of that world, so that they may use that instrument to carry out the orders of God. In this way, they contribute to the general work and progress at the same time. There's a second purpose behind each incarnation. We learn what we need to learn in order to develop, in order to get closer to perfection, and at the same time we contribute also to the general work. And if we look at ourselves and be really honest and see how long it takes us to improve just a little bit, to get a bit closer to perfection, just in relation to one imperfection that we have. And we may understand that one incarnation is not enough for a spirit to reach perfection, because of what is also being explained, all spirits are being created in the same way. God does not, that supreme intelligence, supremely just and good, does not create some with some aptitudes, faculties that others would not have. Then where would the justice be? We were all created in the same way. All spirits are created simple and ignorant in the sense of without knowledge. And the objective is the same for all of us, to reach perfection. And this is a very, very, very long process. When we study the Spiritist teachings, we learn that it takes many, many, many incarnations in order to reach that relative perfections that we may reach. And at the moment, we are here in one of these many incarnations and need to learn what we need to learn at this stage of our development. And this process, this process of development is not just a nice suggestion or a nice proposal by God. So we might reach perfection if we like. No, it's actually a law. So, and that applies to all of us, the law of progress. We're all subject to that law, and sooner or later we will all reach perfection. And the spirits explain us this progress refers to both our intellectual development and our moral development. And in question 778 and the following in the Spirit's book, we can learn more about this. It's really explained clear. It is a law applying to all of us. Progress is a law, and we have to progress. But not only us as spirits. The law of progress refers to everything in nature. And at the same time that we, human beings, need to progress, the planet that we live on, the world that we live on, progresses as well. And for those of you who had a chance to follow this post talk 2 weeks ago, he explained that much more detailed, the progression of worlds, how it works, and what we are going through at this moment. And if you didn't have a chance, you can still watch it on YouTube or on Facebook. And I would just like to refer to a very short part of it to bring it into this context. We find this in chapter 3 in the Gospel, where we learn a lot about the progression of worlds from the very primitive state to a more perfect state. And the spirit of St. Augustine, he explains us that at the same time that living beings progress morally, what we saw before, the world they inhabit progress materially. And the earth has arrived at one of its periods of transformation, in which, from being an expiatory world, it will become a regenerative one. Then humans will be happy because God's law will reign on it. So this is where we are heading to. And this moment of transformation, of transition, is what prepares this progression and this development towards a world of regeneration. And the same spirit, St. Augustine, he describes the world of regeneration, how the conditions are there and how humans live there in this chapter 3 in the Gospel according to Spiritism. And there's one sentence that I find particularly beautiful that I would like to share with you. When he talks about regenerative worlds, he says, "The word love is written on every brow. A perfect equity governs social relationships, and all acknowledge God, endeavoring to evolve towards him by following his laws." So this is the next stage that we will have to reach on our planet. And we are at this process in order to prepare it right now. Now this process of transformation, of transition, has not started with the Corona crisis. It has started long ago. And this text where St. Augustine tells us the earth, we'll just go back for a second, the earth has arrived at one of its periods of transformation. This text has been written in 1862. So and now we are in 2020. We're really getting to a point where this moment is becoming closer, where we're really reaching this next step. And this moment of the pandemic, as I said before, is not that this was the start of the transition period, but this is a very special moment within this transition, because we're all affected. All of humanity is going through that same situation, and we are all asked to kind of deal with it. Now we may ask, okay, if we need to progress, if this is a law, humans have to progress, planets have to progress. Why does it have to be so difficult? Why is there so much suffering involved? We have this pandemic, but we also have other calamities happening, like earthquakes. We had the huge tsunami in 2006, and many other plane crashes where many people discarnate at the same time. So why does it have to be that way, and why do these things happen? And Allan Kardec, he also asked the spirits, all the spirits, when he prepared the spirits book, in question 737, for what purpose does God inflict humankind with destructive calamities? And the answer is very clear: to impel them to progress more quickly. You must see the end in order to appreciate the results. I think this sentence is particularly important, because at the moment when we are in a difficult situation, and in the situation that we're in right now, of course we cannot see the end yet, because we do not know how it will be. We just see our difficulties, we see a lot of suffering, we see people who are in an existential crisis because they lost their jobs, they lost their businesses. We saw especially many people being sick, many people passing away because of the virus. But all this is part of a bigger process, and when we're in this, then it's difficult to take a step back and look at it from another perspective. But this information by the spirits, really, you must see at the end in order to appreciate the results. I think this refers to any difficult situation that happens to us. Often we only see afterwards, years after something has happened to us, an accident or whatever it may be, that actually the results from that event were positive, because they impelled us to take a positive step forward. So, as the spirits say, these hardships are often necessary in order to make things arrive at a better order more quickly, and to accomplish in a few years what would otherwise require many centuries. And in the next question, actually 738, Allan Kardec asks, wouldn't there be another way for us to learn? Do we really have to go through that suffering? And the spirits explain, well, actually, yeah, because God gave us the ability to discern between good and bad, between good and bad, wrongdoings, if we wish. But for us, it's still difficult to really follow this, to only practice the good, and to really do this effort, undertake this effort by ourselves, to only do all the good we can, and to overcome our selfishness and so on, our imperfections. Often we just need something that impels us really to take a next step and a bigger step. And that can be very painful, as we see at the moment. If you would like to study this information a bit more profoundly, we have the book Genesis, which is also one of the 5 basic books of the Spiritist teachings. In the last chapter, chapter 18, which is called The Time Has Come, we find a lot of information about this moment of transition. And I just quoted a short paragraph here, where we learn that, okay, up till now, humankind has made already incontestable progress. Due to their intelligence, humans have achieved results never reached before regarding sciences, arts, and material well-being. And the mere fact that we are able to connect even while being distant from one another, just by all the virtual opportunities we have. That shows how much we have progressed already, and there are so many more examples of progress regarding our intelligence, but there is much progress yet to be made. They, us, have yet to make charity, fraternity, and solidarity reign amongst them in order to assure their moral well-being. The book Genesis was published in 1868, and I think this sentence is still so valid nowadays, so many years later. That we need to make charity, fraternity, and solidarity reign amongst us in order to assure our moral well-being. And there is, if we study the Gospel, if we study the Spirit's book, there is no other way for us to progress and for us to reach that moral well-being than through fraternal love, charity, fraternity, solidarity. This is the only way, and we still haven't reached it yet. And if you go back to where the Spirit of St. Augustine describes the regenerative world, this is where we need to go to, and very soon. And when we look at society, what happened, for instance, during the pandemic, and what we also see when other calamities happen, this brings our readiness to be fraternal, to show solidarity, to help one another, really, to the point. And often we need really something terrible to happen in order to really see, oh, someone needs help. But we could also do that without having these situations. So very beautiful examples of people taking care of others who needed to have the groceries done or any other help while they couldn't leave their homes. We saw how the situation helped us to become more grateful towards those who made sure that our society could continue to work, grateful to those who took care of our loved ones who needed medical treatment. So many people who worked in order to really make sure we could all continue. And until now, we had a chance to travel a bit across Belgium over the last 2 weeks, and there was still so many signs in the windows saying thank you to all those who took part in that. And I hope that when we go back to, I don't want to call it our normal life, but back out there again, which is already happening now, that we may keep these impulses and continue to be grateful, continue to be more fraternal towards others. And this is nothing new. This is not a new teaching. We have seen this 2,000 years ago by Jesus as the golden rule. Do unto men everything that you would want him to do unto you, for such is the law and the prophets. And actually we find this concept in different words in many, many different philosophies. So this is really something universal. And if you would just take this sentence as our guidance, we would be really on our pathway to learn how to love in a fraternal way. And as if this would not be enough, there's a very beautiful passage in the book No Solar, Life in the Spirit World, which was written by the spirit of André Louis through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, where André Louis describes what happened after his discarnation, how he arrived in the spiritual world, and how things worked there and what happened to him. And he was once invited to the home of a colleague of him, and the mom of that colleague talks about nourishment because they were having a light meal, and she actually reminded and explained to him that the real nourishment for us is actually love. Love is the major, as she says, love is the major sustaining element for all creatures. Love, and only love, is the source of sustenance for the soul. And later on in that chapter 18, she explains really how love helps us to reach this moral well-being, and how we help others when we, through simple acts of love, through kindness, through some simple act where we help someone. It is along with the normal. But there's this word that you say, and which already is something nice. It really has an effect on the moral well-being of that person. It really contributes to the nourishment of the soul. And if, as you said, one day humans, incarnate humans, will understand how important that is, and how important that is for their well-being. So, and then when we talk about love, there are so many aspects that we could talk about, and we have no time now to do this evening. And we could consider it in many ways, and it of course merits to do that. Maybe we could just name one or two thoughts that come to mind. One very important one, if we talk about love and us as this question, if love is, the nourishment for our soul, love is what makes us feel better, and we know that if we practice some act of kindness, if we do something good for someone, if we help someone, we feel so much better. And one very important aspect is what Daniel talked about last week, forgiveness. As long as we are not able to forgive someone, we will not feel good. Comprehension. We all have people that challenge us, that challenge our patience, that we have some difficulties with. Maybe we can use this moment where we might still be a bit distant from some of these people, not in isolation anymore as we used to be for a few months, but to look at people literally from a bit of a distance, and try to look at those that really challenge us, that we have difficulties with. Try to look at them as a brother or sister that is just on the same pathway as us, because as we saw before, we were all created in the same way. We're all heading towards the same objective. We all have our shortcomings. We all have our difficulties. We might be stronger in one aspect, the other person is stronger in the other aspect. And if we try to look at the positive sides of someone, and to look at the other person as someone with their own history, with their own story, with their own challenges that we don't know anything about, because you only see a small fragment of someone's life. Maybe that can help us to overcome a bit our difficulty to get a bit closer to that fraternal love that we all need in order to feel better, right? And maybe if we have to learn to be patient, if we have to learn to be tolerant, and someone is the instrument for that, we can see them as teachers, right? Often the persons we have the most difficulties with are the ones that teach us the most important lessons in our life. When we study the Spiritist teachings and read the Spiritist literature, we learn that we are together for some reason. We're not, again, we have the supreme intelligence that is behind everything. We're not together in a family, we're not together with colleagues just by accident, but we are together for some reason. And in the Spiritist literature, we find so many examples of God's infinite goodness and wisdom when it comes to the composition of family, for example, where we see that we get the chance to reincarnate together in one family in order to overcome some difficulties with someone that we may have harmed in the past, someone that we need to learn to love, and we get this new chance. And these are often people we have most difficulties with. we are debtors of one another, and if we could understand all the relations, all the connections between us, I think we would do much greater effort in order to try and overcome the difficulties we might have. And really, if we have a difficult relation to someone, we can be sure that we have our part in this, or our share in this difficult relationship. It's not just because the other person is complicated. We do have our share in that, and we get a new chance whenever we reincarnate. We get a new chance to learn and to overcome the difficulties that we may have with one another. So that will be one of the aspects that I would like to talk about when we think about what do we lack? Why don't we just love one another if this is so makes us feel so good? And one thing that I think is important to remember, I once saw a video on YouTube which is called "If We Could See Inside Each Other's Hearts," or if you could see inside others' hearts. And that is a short video, 4 minutes, that shows a scene in a hospital where people are together in an elevator or in a corridor, and just every person has kind of a label which just says what kind of situation they're just going through. And so you see people together in an elevator, see a young man who was like smiling, very happy because he just learned he will be a father. Next to him, there's a lady not looking that happy because she's recently divorced. And we see people who are going through really difficult situations because they just had to visit someone for the last time that will soon pass away. And this video is so touching because it shows us that all of us have our struggles, have our issues, and if we knew about the other person's situation, we would be so much more compassionate. We would be so much more understanding, so much more able or ready to, to say, okay, this was not perfect, but I know you have a difficult moment and it's no problem. And this is actually the situation that happens. So if you would be aware of that, I think it would really help us to look a bit different at the people that cause us difficulties or that challenge us. And one last thought before I come to the end. When we talk about fraternal love and trying to do a bit more and take a step forward, and I'm not suggesting that we all should now do something very big, that we all should now found an NGO or do something very special. It's really small gestures and small steps that I think that will help us on our pathway. Reaching out to someone that we see struggling, offering help, and also the other way around, if we need help. This is an important message that I would like to pass before we end. If we need help, especially at this very moment, but not just because of the pandemic, it is completely normal that we struggle, that we feel we may not be able to cope with things, that we have anxieties, that we are in situations where we think we just cannot get out of them. Please be aware that this is something very normal which happens to many people, and it is important that when we are in such a situation that we reach out to someone, that we talk to someone. And this may be a loved one, someone we know, or if you are not comfortable with that, there are helplines. Here in Belgium, we have helplines in at least 4 different languages that I know of. In English, for the foreigners living here, in French, in Dutch, in German, where we can really talk to someone who will listen to us. And as I said in the very beginning, we also, in Kafla, we have our fraternal conversation where we can also talk to someone. So please don't go through this difficult moment alone. And for all of those who have the habit of praying, let's remember that, especially in moments of difficulties, it's important to pray, and that's important to remember that no prayer will be left unanswered. This will really help us. So I would like to thank you for your attention, for your patience. And talking about prayer, I would like to invite all of you to our final prayer. So may these vibrations of fraternity, of fraternal love, extend to wherever it may possible. May all of those who are struggling at this moment receive the help that they need. May all those who are suffering, who are at a desperate situation, remember and feel that all our difficulties are temporary and that they will pass. May we always keep this hope in our hearts. And also may I would like to thank the mentors of our group who have helped us over these difficult weeks and months. And I would like to ask for God's blessing so that these beautiful activities may continue and help so many people, both incarnate and discarnate. So be it. So thank you very much, everyone. And as this was the first talk, my first talk on behalf of Nick Hafler, I would like to take this opportunity and also thank wholeheartedly everyone at Nick Hafler for receiving us so warmly and for giving us this opportunity of taking part in the activities. Thank you. And hope to see you all next Tuesday, not with me, but for another talk. And stay tuned. Thank you. Take care.